everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of The Art Agenda, a new series where I'll be talking to you guys about my inspirations, I'll be giving you guys art tips, and I'll be answering some of your guys' questions. So for this first episode, I recently got a comment from Christina on one of my videos, and she asked if I can do a tutorial on painting skin tones. So I was super excited to get this request. First of all, the fact that people are actually watching my videos and commenting is amazing. And second of all, the fact that someone liked my art enough that they would actually want my advice, that just meant the world to me. So I just want to preface this video by saying that there are many different methods for painting skin tones, and I am purely just going to give you my opinion, and there's definitely going to be people out there who are like, oh, that's wrong, but this is the way that I have found that works for me. The first most important thing when painting skin tones is value. So it doesn't matter as much about the colour, as long as you've got the value, the darks, the lights in the right place, it's going to look realistic. And I'm going to go into more detail about each of these throughout the video. The second tip I have for you guys is layering. So I used to think that if I just mixed the right colour and put it in the right place, then it would look realistic, but that's just not the case, especially for watercolour. In order to make it look realistic, you need to build it up slowly, tinting the colour as you go until it looks exactly the way you want it. So first I'm going to go into more detail about value and layering, and then I'm going to show you on a painting. Here we go.
So starting with the materials that I'm going to use for this demonstration. For the paper, I almost always use Arches Watercolour 300 GSM cold press or medium paper. And for the brushes, I don't really have a particular preference with brand, but I do like to use a variation of different sized round and filbert brushes. And as you can see here, I do not treat my brushes very good. The colours which I use is the yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, ultramarine, burnt sienna, dioxazine violet, and Payne's grey. So those are basically the colours that I use, pretty much in order that I use them as well. And then for the white highlights, I like to use a permanent white gouache paint. I don't really have a preference with the brands that I use, but I do, as much as I can, try and buy the artist quality over the student quality paints. Moving on to value, I'm going to show you guys this art hack which I use while I'm painting to see a photo in terms of value only. The photo which I'm using as reference is this image by Faestock off of deviantart.com, and I will leave a link for her gallery below in the description. So here I have the reference image which I am using, and I have this open in Photoshop, which is cropped and scaled to fit my page size. And I basically always have this on display right in front of my painting, as opposed to just having a printout of your reference photo, because this way it's much easier to paint because you can zoom in and isolate the specific shapes rather than sort of just seeing the image as a whole. And as well as having my color image, I have a black and white image as well. So this basically is eliminating all the color and isolating it purely in terms of value. So it just helps, especially when you're painting skin tones which are not the realistic tones, but maybe you're painting in a blue color or purple or whatever color you like. It just really helps so you can see exactly where the dark and the light and the midtones are. Moving on to layering, I basically always start the same way with the light tones and then transitioning into the dark. So how I used to paint was I would make a flesh tone, then I would add brown to make a mid-tone, and then I would add black to make the darkest tone. The problem with this method was that the colours ended up being quite flat and lifeless, and I find that using my new method, the colours end up being a lot more vibrant and there's a lot more variation in the colours. So my first layer is almost always yellow ochre, which I use to mark the lightest tones of the picture. Then my second layer is alizarin crimson, where I start to map more of the medium tones of the picture. Then ultramarine is what I use to map out the darkest tones of the picture. So my fourth layer is then color correcting the hue of the skin. So if it needs to be a bit more tanned, I will add a layer of alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. And then for the darkest areas, I use a mixture of ultramarine and dioxazine violet. Alright, demonstration time. Time to put these points in action. So I'm starting with my first layer of yellow ochre, marking out the lightest tones. And then my second layer is the alizarin crimson, marking out my medium or mid tones. And then my third layer is ultramarine, which I am putting in just the darkest areas of the image. So it still looks quite light at this point. So right now I'm making a hue adjustment. Basically, I was adding in a mixture of yellow ochre and alizarin crimson to give the skin a bit more of a tanned sort of look. And then moving on now, I'm just starting to add in the very darkest tones, so around the eyes, the eyelashes and eyebrows, and around the nose. And this just sort of helps you to sort of gauge how dark you need to take the skin. I always think that slower is better because it's a lot easier with watercolor to go darker than it is to try and lift color and go lighter. So now that the darkest areas are in place, I'm basically just sort of jumping around and just sort of seeing which areas need to be darkened or lightened or which color. So it's all really just depending on where the reference photo is. And then finally, here I am just adding in the final details and adjustments. And here is a few zoomed in shots of the final painting.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys found that video useful. One thing I didn't mention at the start was that we are now at 150 subscribers. It means the world to me. And if you guys have any requests for videos, please leave those down below in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.